All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Cross-Examination. I have a very special guest today that I am very excited to introduce you to. But first, I want to remind you to like and subscribe and be sure to hit those so you can get all the new updates on videos where I'm sharing things about authors that I like and people that are friends of mine, and just movie news and whatever kind of general writing tips and whatever kind of thing floats our fancies. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. A quick shout out before we get started, just to all the German fans. I want to say a big thank you for helping the latest book over there to go to #3 on the Der Spiegel list. So thank you so much to all of you. I love you guys. And hopefully we'll have lots more Ackerman books on the way, and maybe some new characters coming in there too. I'd love to go back to Baxter Kincaid if any of you remember him. He might actually appear in one of the next books. And also the characters from Spectrum. Actually, I'm working on the third in this new series, and kind of a little behind the scenes. Some of the characters from Spectrum, August Burke and Nick, are going to show up for just a little cameo in this next Ackerman book. So that'll be fun. But let's get right into it. I have a very special guest, a good friend of mine. Simon Gervais is how I believe you would say it properly. Of course, a lot of us would say more like Simon Gervais, but
I'm wondering how the German folks would call me.
I don't know. I don't know how to Simon. I don't know. It would be very
Harsh.
Yes. Guttural.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so yeah.
I'd like to hear it in German, but
yeah. Well, Simon. No, Simon would be. I think they have just Simon. They would probably say it like Simon, but I don't know. You mentioned you have a story about this, actually.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it was about the pronunciation of my name. As I don't think if your guests know or not, but I'm French Canadian. I write for an American market. I'm unknown in Canada. My books are not selling here much, but they're big seller in the US, UK, and Australia. And so my agent and editor, they always call me Simon Gervais. But my good friends, people like you, they always try to, to pronounce it in French. And they say Simon. It's always different. So I always find that very funny. But the story I wanted to talk to you about was one of my good friend, Mark Cameron. He writes for the Tom Clancy estate. He's presently writing the Jack Ryan series. And not as a favor to me, but because we're good friends, he decided to create a character in the Tom Clancy series called Lisanne. And Lisanne is my wife's name, as you know. So he based that character on her. And a lot of Anglophone, they just cannot pronounce Lisanne. They say Lisanne, Lausanne, Lisanne. They have no idea. But Scott Brick, who narrates the Tom Clancy, he just said it perfectly. He really has say Lisanne, like it just come out of his mouth perfectly. So I was super happy because right now I'm listening to Out of Office, which is the 2 books in the past. And I was blown away because I usually read them. I know how to pronounce my wife's name, but when it's the first narration I'm listening from a Tom Clancy and a Mark Cameron book. And I was so happy with how we pronounced my wife's name. It was really, really cool. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but there was one point, because it's more of an "an" sound, right? Lisanne.
Yeah.
It's not a lisan.
No, it's not.
It's like an "an." Like, so we actually had been friends for quite a while, and we were out somewhere, and you go, you told us, like, you're saying lisan. Like, we've been saying that we thought that was her name for
I remember we're in New York when this happened.
And we were in New York at like a comedy club, and you're like, it's Lisanne, and we're like, oh, well, we've been saying, like, but it is. I didn't realize how much different French and English, like just the way that you say the words, and how difficult it is, because some of us, like, some of the way that you pronounce things, like, we don't make those sounds.
Right.
like in
Absolutely.
English. And so it kind of just, it was really fascinating for me. I really, it's been so cool, like knowing a French Canadian, honestly.
Thank you. Well,
Like,
my agent Eric Myers, he's been with me since we've known each other, really, because you were there when all of this magic happened with my agent when we met at ThrillerFest, and I think it was in 2015. So I've known him. I've been with him for 6 or 7 years.
mm,
He's a good friend of ours. He came to visit at our place in Canada. We go eat together, and he still calls Lisanne Lison. He just cannot pronounce it correctly.
it is. Yeah, it is. It's difficult for us. It is.
So
Well, okay, so we've established what your name is and how we say it, but let's talk a little bit about like who you are and what, because as you mentioned, you're what's something I think really cool about you is that you're somebody, I've met a lot of authors over my career, but a lot of those, when I met them, they were the established author. I was the one starting out, or we met and we were both kind of at the same level or whatever. But you were actually the first one I met and became really good friends with, who, like, well, other than people like I started out with, like Jeremy Burns or something,
right.
like we met at Thriller Fest when we were pitching together. Jeremy and I did. We stood in line together to pitch. I don't know if you knew that, to
No,
do
I
Pitch
didn't know.
Fest. Yeah, that's how we met. But we met at your first Thriller Fest, and I was already writing and had stuff out, and I remember meeting you and really liking you and wanting to, being like, oh, this guy's gonna be big, and we're gonna, I really want to help him all if I can, and so it's kind of cool, like, you know that I've got to see your whole like your whole career develop, and how, and kind of the twists and turns of it. But
Yeah, for sure.
but before we get into like your books and stuff, I want you to give a little bit of information about what you did before, because I think that also is such a cool thing about you, and informs a lot of what your books are going to be like.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so and it's funny you mentioned this about my background, because my agent, when I signed with him in 2015, he said, Simon, you might not be the best writer, but I can sell you. So that's what he told me. So my background is I joined the military in 1997 as an infantry officer in the Canadian Forces. And I did that for close to 5 years. I retired, but no, I retired. I changed job in August 2001 and joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is the equivalent of your Secret Service, FBI, ICE, Immigration Services, all in one. We're a big federal police force. 21,000 police officers. We patrol from Vancouver to St. John, Newfoundland. And I was lucky enough that during my career, because I was in training when September 11 happened, so there was a lot of gear switching within the RCMP at the time. And I did most of my career with the counter-terror unit of the RCMP. And I was deployed many years overseas, mostly in Europe and in the Middle East. For the RCMP. And in 2008, though, it was getting uh, a little bit tough to be away so much with two young kids, a wife that's a businesswoman, and an endodontic at the same time, with lots of employees. And her husband, me at the time, was often away 2 weeks per month overseas. So it was really difficult for her. And we kind of talked about it and said, can you find something within the organization that will allow you to stay home a little bit more? And so I did that, and I joined the Protective Services, which is the Secret Service branch of the RCMP. And I was assigned to the Protective Service, and I protected the family of two different Canadian prime ministers, the US ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to Canada, and pretty much all the heads of states visiting Canada, including President Obama, Chinese president, Queen Elizabeth II. So I was part of all those details over the years. And at some point, I did a 2-year stint with our counter surveillance and counterintelligence unit here in Ottawa, which I thought was Absolutely amazing. It was a unit I didn't even know existed before I joined it.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
Before we go on with that, can you give us a little bit of what that is? I noticed that in your bio, and I kind of thought, what is it that a counterintelligence agency for police does? I see like a CIA thing, like counterintelligence and this kind of thing, but what does that mean for a police agency?
Well, I would say most of the work is counter surveillance on it. We make sure that our protectees are not followed, or if they're followed, we get intelligent on who follows them and why they're being followed. So we
Okay.
gather intelligence files on that, and we try to find out the reason behind why they're taking pictures, why are they posting people in front of their house, these type of things. Because when you're a protective agent, you're always moving. You don't have time to really assess what's going on. If you can stay 3 or 4 hours at a bench park just looking to see which car passes every 15 minutes and why. So that's why there's a specialized unit within my organization that was taking care of that. So it was a lot of fun, and I was able to stay home. Travel was at a minimum during that time. And that's when I really started into writing, because I was reading a lot of book at the time, a lot of books. And I always found that even with the big name authors, even though the plot were fantastic, the scenarios were great, the action scenes weren't the best. I had a feeling that they've never been shot at, they've never been in a firefight, never had the proper training, not have the true adrenaline of being caught in a tight space. And I thought I could bring that to the table because I had gone through these things. Of course, nowadays there's a lot more author like me. In fact, to tell you the truth, if you want to make it in the military spy thriller genre nowadays, you have to have a background similar to mine. If you look at all the new authors that had success, all of them are former military, former SWAT team, former CIA, just because this is what people want to read. They want to read about stories of how we operated
Yeah.
in the field.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Tom Clancy earlier of Mark Cameron
Yeah.
writing for him, for that estate. Uh, and yeah, I think he's kind of started that, like where that space, that military, like you say, that military espionage space, definitely they want that ring of truth. They
Because
want
they can sell
where
it.
where I think like for example, I'm not actually a serial killer. You know, I haven't murdered anyone. I've been thinking about taking it up, just so I know,
Crime pays, they
just
say.
just for some research,
Right.
just research purposes. But no, but but that is kind of the thing. Like, I don't think like my books are not, supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be a little more over the top and a little, because also the subject matter is so dark, it actually kind of lends itself well to that. Like, where if you really like, sometimes it's like, sometimes a book in what I do, like the serial killer thing, if they really get down dirty into it, it's hard to read sometimes,
Yeah.
and could be the same with yours. But that action thing is just so, like you say, so visceral, and so to know just those little nuances that, I try to pick these things up and learn these things from guys like you and Mark, and different ones. But yeah, there's no substitute for actual real world experience. And that's what I when I heard your background, because you what's so cool about your background too, it's like you were knew all along that you were going to write books, and you were just doing things that would help you. Because, like, look at the different, like, oh well, I worked in the with DEA for a while, then I did counterterrorism, and then I did counter surveillance, and I did protective detail. And it's like, okay, well, you've got just the whole gamut covered. You actually
Exactly.
have
No, you're
real
right.
world
You're right.
experience in all of them, and so it's
This
so
is
cool.
one of the beautiful thing about the Royal Canadian Mounted Police compared to a standard department like the Toronto Police or the Montreal Police, is that we're such a big organization where we have so many things under one roof that for within your career, in your career, you can do a lot of different jobs, and it's really fun. Instead of doing patrol for 15 years, well, there's a chance for you after 2 or 3 years after you've done your time in patrol to do federal jobs like the equivalent of DA. You're able to travel overseas to do a drug interdictions raid, these type of things. And this is what's marvelous about this organization, that it's really hard to find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very fortunate. I was extremely lucky, and I loved every minute of it
Yeah.
until I retired, like in 2014.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. Like you say, if you were an author writing in the US, those are all very specialized. DEA handles drugs, FBI's not doing that. And then, of course, tangentially, but, I mean, if it's a drug case, it's DEA. And if, FBI goes overseas and stuff, for certain investigations, but it's not related to like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's not CIA is a totally different thing. So here in the US, we're very compartmentalized. And I think it is very cool that that the RCMP has it under one roof, where it just seems like you would probably get more done and more like cooperation and things, where it's like one.
Exactly. There's no interagency warfare. It's all about, we're all under one roof. So,
right.
And even though it's a large organization, you always know someone who knows someone. So you want a tip, or you want to access some database that you don't necessarily access to when you're with the protective service of the RCMP. Well, you call your friend at the drug section, and he's going to be able to find out for you. So it's a lot of fun. I think it's one of the best police force in the world, and that's what they say. Mounties always get their man, because we do.
Yeah. So after you did all that,
yeah,
then you start writing. And so let's talk a little bit about your the first series first.
The first series is
into the others.
I think I have them here. So this is the Thin Black Line. That was the first book that I wrote. It took me 7 years to write it, because I was writing it part-time, like most authors, after the shift or early in the morning, during weekends. And I really, again, like most author, I kind of based the main character on me, and his wife on my wife. Of course, I changed the name, but Mike Walton, my main protagonist, has exactly the same background I have. And you remember, it was a challenge at the beginning, because the main protagonist is Canadian. And it was, even though my agent said, okay, we should be able to sell it in the US, it was extremely difficult. We went to a lot of editorial meeting, and we were shut down at the last minute because they say, well, the book is a little bit too Canadian. We don't think it's going to sell as well in the US. So I had to change a lot of things about it. Even though I kept the background as Canadian, I had to make him operate in the United States to make sure that I would get a larger readership than if it was too Canadian focused. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to realize here it's all about us. We're pretty selfish. But no, I would think that's a little counterintuitive, because you would think, like you said, it is a different organization that is like it's a cool, I think a series based out of the RCMP would be great, and fascinating, because we get so many things here it's actually kind of interesting. Like we have so many different things here in the US, and with my books, I actually took in the newest series, I just made it FBI, because it got to the point where it was like too hard to like if you're trying to do like a different kind of thing, and you're trying to like, oh, it's under like, because in the first this was kind of a spin-off series with Ackerman, but in the first series, he's working out of the Department of Justice in this like shadowy think tank group and stuff. But then in the next one, I'm just like, he's just going to be under the FBI, because I got people just have, they like it just to be simple, on some of those things.
Easier to follow for them.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, I found that kind of interesting. Whereas me, I'm I'm more interested in like the most obscure, like these kind of things that we haven't read about, that we haven't
Right.
experienced. And so that's why I think when I first heard about RCMP, like it's, and they do all this, and I didn't know until I had met you. I didn't know that all of that fell under the umbrella of the
Right.
RCMP. And so, I would think that a series about that would just have really taken off. But of
And
course,
maybe,
of course it did. You got the books did get into print, and
yeah, and it did pretty well for that book. I think I don't have the number in front of me, but I'm gonna say it was over 35,000 copies that we sold of the Thin Black Line. Because I know that this specific series, my first one, we're over 60,000 copies of those books. So I think they did really well.
mm,
Um, Especially that I signed with a small publisher at the beginning of my career. So I was really happy with the initial result.
yeah,
Um, and I tried to adapt myself through the series. As I said, the Thin Black Line was when I started it when I was working counterterrorism. So the bad guys are Islamic terrorists because at the time this was the main
right,
uh, the main focus of pretty much all the intelligence agencies. Then on a red dotted line, that book, the bad guy became the Russian because the whole game had changed toward the Russians at the time.
mm,
And in the third book, a thick crimson line is the Iranian that are doing the damage, and moles that were within the Secret Service here in Canada that were there since the 80s. They had their kids that grew up within our organizations, and then they received a signal and they came out. This is this always been a fear within I think a lot of federal agencies, is that they had sleeper agents that were the parents or that were the children of parents that were infiltrated in the late 70s or in the early 80s, and now that they've grown to position of power within the government, and that their loyalty are not necessarily with their adoptive country but
mm,
remain with the country of their parents. So I'm not saying that's that's a reality, but it's always been a fear
sure.
within an organization that something like that might happen. So that's why I wrote a thick crimson line, is to end phases. It's to write about that.
So, and are these? Would you say somebody could jump in at any point of these, or do you think they kind of it'd be better for them to start with the first one and
I
go
think
right?
there's a big art across the three books, but you could pick any one of them and read it as a standalone.
Okay. Just
Uh,
thinking if somebody like heard the Iranian thing and was like, oh, that's really
oh yeah,
interesting
yeah,
or
you
whatever, if
could
they
pick
could
it.
just jump right in
Exactly.
and
There's about
wow.
5 to 10 pages in book 2 and 3 that talks about what happened in the previous book. So I'm always catching up a little bit, but it's not a big info dump. It's just I'm letting you know what the character's background is. But of course, if you want to have the full adventure, I always recommend to start a series at book number 1 if you have the time.
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, and a lot of, I mean, personally, the way that I am, I will always start with the first, like, even if there's, it really gets fuzzy, like Clive Cussler. When I went to read his books, I don't know if you remember this, but like, because he had written some, but then it wasn't published, and then there was one that was published later, but it was actually written before, and there was a few, so it was like
I didn't
the
know
whole
that.
order, the whole order of the first like maybe like 10, 15 books was just like completely strange.
Oh,
And
okay.
and so I was like, no, I want to read the very first one. I want to read the one that he wrote first,
Okay.
not the one that was published first. And so yeah, I'm that's the way I am. So I would definitely recommend everybody. But I actually the love your other series, your Pierce Hunt series, even more, which is starting with Hunt Them Down, then Train to Hunt, and Time to Hunt, which came out in November, right?
Right. This is the big series. This was my breakout series. We've reached more than 250,000 readers across all platform on this series in the last 2 years. So it has done really, really well for me. I had so much fun writing these books. I needed a change of pace. I felt I needed to restart something and kind of go big or go home. I wanted to write a bold story with lots of action, lots of violence, but with a flawed character as well. And this is the story of Pearson. He's a at the beginning of the book, he's a DA agent that get kind of screwed by a reporter, and he kick his ass.
I actually I remember like really feel it, like that was like one of the, because you do it is one of those situations where you set it up where that reporter and the thing like uh, and maybe you can actually like give some other examples of this, but I could totally see what happened there because it was like doesn't he tweet something, or he gives away basically that they're doing this raid.
Yeah, he's live tweeting while he's in the suburban heading toward the
Yeah,
bad
and so
guys.
he's given away that they're doing this raid and costing people their lives, and
Yeah,
not only bad guy, not only the good guys, putting them in danger, but also the bad guy. Like nobody probably would have had to have, you know what I mean? Like if you do it right, you take them by surprise and whatever,
exactly.
and just and so I was curious, how many times have you seen things like that happen? Where
I know
you
this
have some
happened.
example
I
of
know
that?
this happened. It fortunately never happened to me, but I know some operations that got canned because of this. And the reason I wanted to write something about this is that my dad was a reporter for Le Journal La Presse, which was the biggest French newspaper in Quebec and actually in North America. And my dad did that in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s when I feel that the reporters had standard that if somebody tell them something, it was not about the news cycle. Oh, no worries, sir. I'm going to keep on it for 48 hours. I'm going to publish it when there's no more danger. And I'm not going to write an editorial piece on it. I'm going to just say the facts.
Hmm.
I will interview a lot of people, get the facts straight and write. Nowadays, I feel that it's all about editorial. It's all about clicks. It's all about likes. Um, and I feel that the reporters, the journalists, they need to bring content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they don't care whose life they're missing. They just want to have the most like or the most view on their articles. And they don't always take into consideration the lives of the people they're affecting by tweeting or by writing articles without having all the facts.
Yeah, I mean, and it's we live in this kind of uh age. I've heard people say it's post-truth.
Yeah.
Like we live in the post-truth age where there is no real truth anymore, because we don't, like, even if the news comes out with something, half the people, I don't know how it is in Canada, but half the people go, yeah, I don't believe that.
Well, I understand why. Honestly, we don't have the same problem at the same level here in Canada. But during the last presidential election, I always get my sources from different places. I always still read the main media. I don't go into those little website of conspiracy theories, but I
Mhm.
always go to CNN and I go to Fox News, which in my opinion are the two opposite.
Yeah.
You had one that supported Trump no matter what. And you had CNN on the other side that were bashing him no matter what. There was
Right.
never an article on either both that was, in my opinion, seemed fair. It was so biased. And it kind of turned me off at the same time. So where do you get your facts when none of them seem to be able to tell you what it is? There was always a little bias, always a little sentence that twisted stuff around. And it was very frustrating.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and it's so. When we were kids, if you remember, like you'd watch the news, and it was this happened at this time,
Mhm.
and these people were affected, and we'll give you more updates,
Yeah,
or
the
what?
five
Like
W.
it's like facts.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's not facts. It's all this editorial, and a lot of it comes to the 24-hour news cycle, like you said, with CNN and Fox News coming
Yeah.
in and all this. But it is a very strange, well, a perfect example, I thought. And I'm a very like not political. I'll just say that, like I hate politics. I don't believe in it. I don't. I'm anti all that. And so I but I remember seeing an article, like it was like a New York Times or CNN or something, and it was like the day after the election, and the headline was like, Trump tries to subvert the election. And I was like, subvert? Like, you're a newspaper, like, that is not the right word. I mean, like, he's obviously, like, Al Gore called into question the election. You know what I mean? Like, lots of times somebody will say, we want to recount in this state,
Yeah.
or we want this kind of thing. Like, to say that just right off the bat, oh, he's subverting the election. Like, it's so inflammatory. Like even the words that they use are designed to like make somebody who's like, oh, he's doing what? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's all this like shock factor and awe to get the, like you said
I
earlier,
think
to
that
get the clicks.
I think they're preaching to their own choir, right?
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
watch Fox News, they'll say everything a Republican supporter would like to hear. And if you watch CNN, they'll say everything Democrats want to hear.
Yes.
So I don't think there's any out. And I think the last 4 years, talking politics, right or wrong, I think the way the Democrats treated the President Trump, as I said, I'm not saying they were right, I'm not saying they were wrong, but the way they acted toward him, what are they expecting now when they're in power? You think that Republicans going to sit down? They will attack Biden, right or wrong, again, no matter what he does. I think the system is completely broken now because they had such a lack of respect. They went outside the line attacking the former president, that now I feel that the Republicans are doing the same thing to Biden.
Right.
And in my opinion, if you don't like a president or you don't like a senator, you vote him out of office after 4 years, but you respect the office, even though the person occupying the office doesn't necessarily do a great job. You need to respect the office, wait your time, vote him out, and bring your guy in, whatever the party is. But now that has been nonstop attacks, I'm not seeing any end to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, it's sad. Well, and we've seen this with the pandemic, the whole kind of post-truth thing, like where
Oh my, yeah.
people don't believe. I've joked, I think here's a bold prediction. We've got this on recording. So if this comes out, I will be one of the first to have said this. If the government comes out and announces that aliens are real and we've been in contact with them, like says this on the news, say, like, just theoretically,
Yeah.
say that we come out and we said this, there would be a third to half of the US population that would say, nope, I don't believe it. That's my prediction. I think there would be that many people here in the US who would just go, I don't think that's true. I think they're making that. I think that's fake news. And so
I'm not understanding what you're saying at all.
I'm saying if like that, if the government came out and said that there were aliens were real, people wouldn't believe it. Like even if we had evidence, if we had an alien on the news,
Yeah.
given a press conference, people would
Right.
go, no, that's some dude in a mask. You know what I mean?
Could
Like,
be. Yeah.
would just, I think we're to that point where there is no truth, like where people don't accept anything as,
Good
I'm
point.
sure
At face
that's,
value. Good point. Yeah.
and so it's an interesting world. But I don't know. We've got off on a huge tangent chasing rabbits.
We did.
It's fun. But it's fun. So okay, you've got the Pierce Hunt series. There's 3 in that now.
Yeah.
But you have, when's your the Last Protector is the next one.
The Last Protector is the first book of a new series, my 3rd series, really. It's coming out in November 2021. So in maybe, I don't know, 6-7 months from now. I honestly believe this is my best book yet. This is the story of a Secret Service agent that's protecting someone he's in love with. He's romantically involved with his protectee. So it's a big no-no. And the father of the person he's romantically involved with is the vice president-elect of the United States. But it's the first time that I actually use my background as a protective agent to write about a protagonist like that. Of course, I had Pearson that was mostly into drugs, counterterrorism for Mike Walton, but this guy is really about protective services, the life of a bodyguard. So I was really excited to write about this because this job has been I've done for years, and it was an important part of my life during those years. So I was really excited, and I think that it's going to open a whole new readership for me because, as usual, I have strong female characters, but the Last Protector is really about the plot, the characters, and there's a little bit less violence as well in the book, which I think my publisher Thomas and Mercer really loved. So hopefully it's gonna be a big book that's gonna meet a lot of success.
And when is that coming out?
In November 1st, 2021.
Okay.
And that's going to be the first book of a new series. I'm presently just got the green light for book number 2. So I'm going to be working on that. And I think it's going to be due to my editor sometime in October and November. And that's going to be my 2022 books.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean that sounds very cool. I think the Secret Service, like there've been lots of books, DEA, cartels. I mean, the cartels is a great one to use as a bad guy. I mean, because just you don't have to have any specific. You just make up your own cartel, and
Exactly.
it's just very easy to do. But I think with the Secret Service thing that you're doing, really, there hasn't been a whole lot of. I mean, are there any other real? I mean, of course
Not that I know
the
of.
one that comes to mind is in the Line of Fire, the movie, with
Clint
Clint
Eastwood,
Eastwood
right?
was kind of the most famous Secret Service kind of thing, I would say. But have there been any other real big books or series or anything else that focus on
Not that
on
I
that
know of.
protective aspect?
Although I think Brad Thor's protagonist, Scott Arvat, is an ex-SEAL and an ex-United States Secret Service special agent as well. But I don't
Yeah,
think he had any book when he was doing the protection detail.
I I I think isn't the first book he's on the protection detail and the person gets killed or something, and that's
I
how it
honestly
starts.
don't remember because I remember the title was Lines of Lucerne, but
Yes.
it's been years since I've read it, and I don't remember what the
Yeah,
story is.
I'm pretty sure there's something with a like they're up in the snow and 'cause I do remember that one, like where I'm pretty sure he was a protective agent,
Okay,
but like you said, it's not focused on it's not focused on that life.
right.
It's like, okay, I'm a protective whatever, and then something happens, and then I've got to go out and do that. And so I definitely think really digging into and you being able to give that insight into like a little bit of what the actual life is
Yeah,
like.
exactly. And I think the publisher digged it a lot, and that's why I know they will push the book really hard. And I'm happy for two reasons because a couple of weeks ago I was doing what we call the cold read. It's the last time I have the chance to read through and correct any type of typos or mentioning to my editor there's something I'd like to change. And I was reading the book and I was like, oh my God, I love this book so much. I hope I'm going to get a great readership out of it. And something else that Thomas and Mercer did fabulously well is the cover. This is the cover that I've always wanted. It's beautiful. It's clear. It clearly represents the book. So I honestly can't wait for November 1st to hear the feedbacks of my fans and readers.
Oh, that, yeah, I'm excited to check it out. So The Last Protector, November 1st, 2021,
Yeah,
available wherever books are sold.
yeah, exactly. And I don't want to do too much marketing, but the pre-order link is already up on Amazon. So if anyone wants to pre-order, and they're super, I'm not sure how much they're asking for, but it's under $5 if you pre-order it. They're doing a huge promo on it. So
And I'm sure the audio will probably be available same time.
yeah, the audio is not up to pre-order yet, but it's gonna be up at the same time, most definitely.
Because yeah, I know you've had some pretty good success in that
My
realm.
God, yeah, hunt them down. That's how it was on the New York Times because they did I don't know what they did honestly, but At some point, my editor called me, or I called her, and I don't remember. They said, "Oh my God, you're number 10." It's like, it's fantastic. I think we sold 12,000 copies of audiobook in one day, in 24 hours.
Wow.
It just picked up, and it
Yeah.
just kept buying. The reviews came in, and Associated Press write a review on it. It was fantastic.
That's
I
awesome.
was so happy about it.
Yeah. And I loved, I'm so excited to see that, like, you're having the success that I knew you would from the
Thanks.
very beginning of first meeting you. I think our first date was to what is it called? Dave and Buster's. Do you remember
Yeah.
this?
Yes, I do.
We were your very first ThrillerFest, and we were like, "Hey, we're going to. Why don't we? You ever hated Dave and Buster?" And we went and played video games and
I
did
remember
and
that.
shot baskets and all
Yeah.
this. And I don't remember who won. I don't remember who was better at shooting the baskets. We were probably
I
both
think
equal.
Jeremy Burns was there too.
Do what?
Jeremy Burns was
Yes,
there too.
yeah, Jeremy Burns, my old friend. So so yeah, I mean, we've had some great times and come to visit you guys. We had the pull of the boat through the
Yeah, you came to us in the Bahamas, and we had
in the
to push the
Bahamas,
boat
and
off.
which
Yeah.
is just our most magical vacation ever.
Oh,
Where
awesome. I'm
yeah,
really
yeah,
glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, we
yeah,
miss it. We haven't been for quite a while because of COVID, of course. But we're much looking forward to going back as soon as these restrictions are lifted.
yeah, yeah. So I love seeing the success that you've had there.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm so excited to check out the new series. It sounds really cool. Now, I had mentioned to you something about giving just a quick writing tip before we go as we
Sure.
kind of close out here. So if you'd like to give just a little bit of, if somebody's starting out, if somebody's what would you recommend? What would
I
some
think
tips
there's
would be?
probably two portions to that answer. The first one is really about a tip about writing, and it's been working well for me. It's to read a lot. I don't think I can mention that enough, but for me, even before writing day, I'm going to read at least half an hour to an hour to bring my mind into the game, because it feels that the words are flowing so much better after I spent half an hour reading. I'm in the zone. I know what I'm talking about. It helps a lot for people that always push back. Oh, I'll start in an hour. I'll do it tomorrow. Start reading a book, and then you're gonna get into the groove right away or automatically, and hopefully it's gonna work out for you as well as it's working for me. And the second thing for people starting in the business, I'd say, is that don't be too quick to self-publish your work. I've seen a lot of people recently that after 30 or 50 rejections, they just decide to self-publish, and it's totally fine if that's what you want to do, but you have to remember that publishing is extremely saturated right now, and you need the help of hopefully of a big publisher to help you bring the book to light, to push it. And also, if you self-publish and your numbers are not good, the publisher on your next series of your next book, they'll look at those numbers, and it's gonna be a no for you. So be very, very careful about the process when you come into this world. Don't discourage too quickly. Accept the criticism. Try to improve your craft, and at some point, there's going to be an agent that's going to pick you up, and that's going to champion you to the publishing houses.
Yeah, well, that's some great advice. I think the what you said right there at the beginning is always some of the first advice that I give to people is I believe it was Stephen King in his book on writing said that if you want to be a writer, you have to read a lot and write a lot, and that's
True.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much and a lot of people do miss out on that reading. Like and like you said, that is a great tip of reading to get into your writing, get the juices flowing.
And
And the self-publishing thing of also, that it's self-publishing has the word publishing in it.
yeah.
So if you're going to do it yourself, you have to publish the book yourself. That means you have to do all the editing, you have to do the cover design, you have to do all the marketing, you have to do, you know, all of this. So like you said, a lot of people think self-publishing is just putting the book typing some words on a page and putting it up there. There's a lot that goes into the whole publishing process that
Exactly.
you have to now
Exactly.
learn.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's really hard to sell more than 100 or 150 copies on your own, because there's so many. There are thousands of new books every day that appears on Amazon and other platforms that
Mm.
are self-published. So yeah, okay, good. You have 10,000 Twitter followers, but they're not all going to buy your books because everybody is bombarding them with all type of ads. So that's why I still believe in the way that traditional publishing works. Yes, you don't have all the controls, but when you have a good agent and a good publisher, like I'm very fortunate to have, it can work in your favor big time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good advice. Okay. Well, I think we've come to the end of our time here. I really want to thank my guest, Simon Gervais.
You're most welcome, buddy.
And everybody be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down there. And also be sure to check out Simon's books on it's
November 1st, 2021.
I'll say I'm gonna Simon SIMONGERVAIS books.com.
Excellent.
So yeah, be sure to go on and check him out. And if you really want to get that kind of inside visceral from somebody who's really been there and really experienced it, look no further, because we've got the guy right here, everybody. So I
Thank you,
want
my
to
friend.
thank you for joining me, and I thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Cross Examination.